Hello, and we're so glad to be here with True Colors. My name is Regina Dighton, and I am the Director of Community Health and Wellbeing for Trinity Health of New England at St. Francis Hospital. And in that role, with all those words, I'm also an old friend and participant in True Colors from the very, very beginning. You can tell by the gray. I was at the very first True Colors conference with Robin at the UConn School of Social Work, so it's dear to my heart. I'm here today to talk about Project Hope and its focus on outreach to transgender women of color. Project Hope targets populations that are disproportionately victims of crime and at the same time disproportionately underserved, not responded to, not having their needs met. And I think we'd all agree that one of those groups are transgender women of color. For instance, did you know that 44% of all hate crimes are attacks against transgender women of color? And this does not include cases where reporting bodies have misgendered the individual. 1 in 5 transgender women face homelessness at least once or more within their lifetime. From the people I know, I'd say more than once. Transgender women of color also frequently face joblessness and discrimination within their workplace. But if they're working, they're being discriminated against. Thus, our happiness about the Supreme Court decision that discrimination in the workplace won't be allowed, but we've still got plenty of other battles to fight. And so in order to, Project Hope utilizes what we call community advocates, and that's a member from the affected community that goes out and works directly with that community. And on that, I am so happy and proud to introduce Raven, our community advocate working on behalf of transgender women of color. Hi, Raven, would you introduce yourself?
Yes. My name is Raven Laveau Moulton. I am the community advocate for trans women of color, and I work with Regina on a regular basis.
And we love it. We just absolutely love it. Wanted to ask you a few questions if we could start. Can you tell me about your experiences with victimization?
I've got many. So, starting from a young age, I was abused by a family member just for being different. And then as I got older, I experienced sexual molestation and rape. And while homeless, I was actually robbed. So imagine being at your lowest point and then like losing everything you have. And then also as an adult, I experienced domestic violence relationship.
That's a lot, is what we call poly-victimization. And that's very often the experience of transgender women in general, and then especially transgender women of color. And some of that abuse, sometimes that victimization, is from people who were supposed to take care of you. Would you say a little bit about that? Because I know that, I thank you for sharing it, because it's especially painful, but I think it's especially relevant.
Yeah. So, that experience when I was younger, granted, I never really thought about this at all, because being a first, second grader, you don't really think about you being different. But at that point in my life,
I'm sorry.
my behaviors weren't what my family accepted for a young little boy. So my uncle would beat me, and I would tell my mom, and my mom wouldn't do anything because a part of her thought somehow I deserved it. So I learned to defend myself. Not in the healthiest way, but still. As I got older, there was a situation my mom actually tried to drown me once. And from those experiences, I learned not to rely on the people who are there for me. I had to rely on myself and learn how to be there for me. So at this point in my life, I've definitely reached that goal. I could do better, don't get me wrong, but I've learned a lot. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. What do you think are the barriers to getting services in this community, in the trans women of color community? What do you think some of the barriers why people don't get the services they need?
So the barriers are there's a lack of organized community. So there's no one place you can go to find trans people of color specifically. And to be honest, with the umbrella of LGBT plus, they don't always include us people of color. So it makes it even more difficult. Being misgendered, that's a big deal. People don't take us seriously. And that's a big problem.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because our whole identity is built around us and at what we identify as. There's another level of belief that because you're trans, you deserve to be treated any type of way that isn't right. And then lastly, actually that's it. That's the three that I have, the three main ones.
That's a lot, and that makes me so angry and so sad at the same time. I want to add one that I'm aware of. A lot of times people won't report their victimization to the police because the statistics of trans women and trans women of color having been ignored or actually assaulted physically and sexually by police are appalling. And so why would you, and I'm not saying that all police would do that, but if all you need is to have that experience once, why would you go back to the same place that previously abused you? And I would think that would be twice as triggering and traumatizing to be assaulted once again by those whose job it is to protect and serve you, like it is the parent, the uncle, the adult in the family who abused you. What do you think can be done to alleviate some of the fears in seeking services?
Education. Teaching people that gender and sexual identity are two different things. So that's definitely a big one to start from a young age. For adults, I would say learning respect for other people, whether you understand it or not, just having general respect for the next person around you. And
good.
Promoting a positive community.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I know I love to dream, and I'm aware that everything that is a reality was once somebody's dream. From the design of your glasses to this coffee cup, somebody imagined it before they made it. So what would it look like? Or tell me about your vision of just fabulous, supportive community for trans women of color. What would that look like?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. A reality where we're not so worried about what were you born as. Like, honestly, I'll have people ask me, like, oh, so what were you born as? Because I can't really determine which gender I was originally born as, which isn't important. Like, at the end of the day, that's not.
Like, did you know was an infant? What infant can say? Infants can't even talk. So it's like, how do you know when you're born? You know you're hungry. But you know when you're born.
Like, you see what I am right now. Accept it. Why do you have to concern yourself with anything before?
Yes.
Meet me where I am now.
Yeah, so there wouldn't be any of that. And I know you've had some thoughts on an organized community.
True.
And what does that look like in your mind?
Organized community? Black Panthers.
Hey, there you go. There you go.
Like, no, let's not reach to that point yet.
The Black Panthers were very much in alliance with transgender people. Absolutely.
Honestly.
Marsha P. Johnson worked closely with Huey P. Newton, one of the co-founders of the Black Panthers. They talked, and he actually made a statement that you just don't see in Black History Month or whatever. It's like straight people buried that statement, but Huey P. Newton made this very strong statement about the need to work with the entire queer community in alliance, in unity, that all oppressed people have to work together.
True. But yeah, there's that. Personally, I would want to live in a reality where we could all just go back and just redo things. That'd be nice. So I realize as I'm getting older, those people who abused me in the past are kind of like seeing how that wasn't right. So having the chance to redo something, that'd be nice.
You mean kind of like reconciliation? People saying, I know I was wrong.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Let's do something different.
Yeah.
That's really, really, that's really important. But I think it's really especially open and kind of you that you're even willing to hear them out.
That's my problem.
Well, that's to me, that's the miracle that is you.
I guess so.
For me, the whole thing about oppression is there would be no wonder that we're crazy, lazy, angry, depressed, dysfunctional, whatever. But what I think people don't see is the miracle and the resilience of people who are treated so negatively, yet get up, not only function, but get up, don't give up, and then give to others. For that, you deserve a halo. What do you think are the strengths of the transgender women of color community that can help build this organized trans women of color group, community, organization?
Oh, resilience. You have to be. Like, let me have a real conversation when it comes to me and my natural hair versus me wearing a wig or anything else. People don't like that. Always waking up and being like, you know what? I'm owning this. This is me. Whether you respect it or not, this is what I go through. Courage. Going outside and being you, no matter who you're around.
Mm-hmm.
Believe it or not, most people are not that courageous. The people you think who are usually aren't. Like, I just had this really deep conversation with somebody. So, going a little off track, I was just part of the Black Lives Matter protest, and honestly, the people who don't go are the main people we're fighting for. It's ironic. But, determination. Always being yourself, doing what you need to be able to be yourself, no matter what that may mean. Persistence. Like, again, just like determination, going out and doing what you need to do for yourself, and then hope. Hoping for a better day.
Those are absolutely, and I love that you ended with hope. I didn't mention that the acronym HOPE stands for Helping Our People Everywhere. And I think that's a great one. I wanted to make sure to mention, in addition to Project Hope, we have a group that meets every second Tuesday of the month, usually from 5:30 to 7. We're meeting virtually now. That's called Under Our Wings. And Under Our Wings is just basically community, everyday people who want to, and they do educate, do prevention education, outreach around resources and services at the Family Advocacy Center for people who have been victims of crime. I'll take this moment to say that the other target populations for Project Hope, and of course they intersect, are Jamaican women and other Caribbean, West Indian women, and there's one intersection right there. Raven is half Jamaican. We're so many things at once. People with disabilities, and that intersects with all identities, immigrants and refugees, and Muslim women. And certainly there are Muslim transgender women of color. though a lot of people wouldn't want to admit that, you know? And so at Under Our Wings, it's really a wonderful space that we hold where we can support and learn to be better allies for one another, as well as outreach to people and help bring them in for services. So just briefly, in terms of what some of those services are related to victims of crime, just about every population we target has a fear of going to the police, has a fear of investigators. And so one of the options you have that's acceptable to the police is to tell them you would like to be interviewed at the Family Advocacy Center, at which point they call our intake line, and you're free to call that intake line as well. The interview happens here, it's recorded, it's done by a very sensitive clinician. Your family advocate from your community can be here with you, accompany you. That's part of, Raven's job, can talk to you on the phone before the actual interview is going to happen, and just be a support, to know that you're not alone in it. And let me give out this intake number right now. It's 860-714-5864. And even if you've just got questions about Project Hope or other things, there's other services, and supports, including mental health and including some basic needs. If you've suffered financially as a result of a crime, there's a fund that we can help you apply to called the Victim Compensation Fund. There's just a number of things. So remember that number, 860-714-5864. You can get help with us even if you don't want to make a report to the police. And some people change their mind later and say, well, I think I do want to report this, but that's fine if you don't want to. Use that intake number even if you just want to leave a message that says, I'd like Raven to call me. And she certainly will.
I definitely will. So Regina is also a writer and wrote a poem dedicated to trans sisters. She's going to read for us right now.
Hi, thanks. The name of my poem is Beauty. I think you missed something. While fawning in the fashion ads, mentally mobbed by images of manufactured models of femininity, you missed while you wished that you could look like, sound like, dress like, live like that girl on the glossy page. Front and center stage, memorialized in Vogue and Elle. Will they end up in the recycle bin, hun? Close that book and really look. Don't miss it. The beauty of your being. The sun rises from your heart. I see it radiate from your loving, wide, all too often sad eyes. It is the glow in your cheeks and the slow, wide opening of your smile. Your laughter lifts me. You don't need to pass. Nothing, no test to take. Don't submit to their exam. Tell them to stick their own brain under the microscope. Because you don't need to pass for nothing. Not white, not light, not rich, not cis. Retire from the grueling proving and rest in the beauty of your being.